Hey guys, welcome back to Baseline Full Court Press, the podcast where women's basketball gets the spotlight, the smoke, and the respect. I'm your host, Patience, and today I'll be talking about something that could bring a lot of controversy, but I've never been one to shy away from controversy. So, today we'll be talking about who some call the most talented and influential player in the WNBA, and that's Caitlin Clark. And before the CC fans come to my comments, I want to start off by saying Caitlin Clark is an elite playmaker, right? She is an elite shooter. And of course, she has contributed in unprecedented eyes on the WNBA. That is not up for debate today. But lately, the conversation around Caitlin Clark has shifted dramatically. Now, the main thing surrounding Caitlin Clark is her interactions with referees, her emotional outbursts, and defensive shortcomings. And that is exactly where today's episode begins. Because my argument is not that Caitlin Clark is not a talented player. My argument is that her recent behavior could cause very serious problems and could be dangerous for the WNBA if it is not addressed. Let's just jump right in. Let's go over the undeniable facts about her game. In high school, she averaged 33.7 points per game, 8 rebounds, 4 assists per game. She had at least 13 threes in one game, a 60-point game at one time. She was Iowa's Gatorade Player of the Year, Jordan Brand All-American, McDonald's All-American, right? In college, she averaged 28.4 points with Iowa. Now in the WNBA, she is averaging 18.7 points per game, 7.9 assists per game, and 4.5 rebounds per game, which is the lowest stat line that she has had since high school. Now, the reason why I just took my time to go ahead and go over those stat lines is because I want to be very clear. This is not a Caitlin Clark hate bait video. This is strictly facts, okay? The problem isn't what she's doing well. The actual problem at hand here is the parts of her game and leadership that have not developed at the same rate. Let's keep it a buck here and state the facts. Caitlin Clark's defense has never been her strong suit. Not in high school, not in college, and not in the WNBA. I don't know who she's guarding on that play, but they have a very quick first step, right? And she stumbles a little bit and then completely turns around in a circle. Within that same play, her man misses the shot. She loses her man, and then her man blows right by her with her legs straight. And so, the main question that I want to answer or touch on is why is it a problem now? If she's been the face of the league this whole time, if she's been putting up these crazy numbers this whole time, doing Caitlin Clark things, why all of a sudden is it an issue now? The difference is now her weak points are starting to overshadow her talent. She has not played a ton of games in the WNBA. She has been hurt the last year and a half, I believe she's been hurt, including even this year, some games she has set out because of her groin issue. And if you know anything about being a star player on a star team, Caitlin Clark is used to being the star one and only player on her team. In high school, in Iowa, she had a little help, but not really. So if that's the star of your team, some coaches and some teams prioritize hiding those weaknesses or they create a specific defense setup to where she is not as exposed, right? Which is kind of what happened at Iowa. And the main reason why her talent is being overshadowed by her lack of defense is because Clark has not leveled up her game on all fronts, but the competition has leveled up. From college to the WNBA, that is a drastic change, a drastic system change. And I completely agree that there are players whose defense is not their strong suit. But there comes a point when you are being ISO'd more than any player in the league within the first 9 games and getting scored on 1v1 when that becomes a problem for your team, for your franchise. And I'm not just saying she's been ISO'd more than any player just to say it. According to the Indy Star, she has been isolated 42 times this season. And if we compare that to the second person in the WNBA who has been ISO'd the most in this season, it's going to be Olivia Miles, who was ISO'd 19 times this season. Caitlin Clark has doubled that. She is not a threat on defense. If you don't think someone is a threat on defense, it's basically a 5-on-4 out there. She has to have some threat to her that teams don't want to continue to ISO her and continue to get those points scored on her because 9 times out of 10, they ISO her and they score on her. It's not like they're ISOing and they miss. No, they are ISOing her and scoring on her. And frankly, it's not just her on ball defense, it's mainly her off ball defense that is just non existent.
See if they can materialize something out of this possession. Prosper fills.
Now, the problem with this is that do you see how Aaliyah Boston had to drop down to the block to cover the drive, which means that Caitlin Clark had two people on one side of the court. And instead of what we have all been taught in basketball, which is to keep your head on a swivel, she did not, which caused her to lose her man, which then caused Aaliyah Boston to have to then come back down from the block all the way back up to guard the man that Caitlin Clark was not there for. And truth be told, defensive mistakes can be fixed, right? With reps, effort, that can be fixed significantly. But the tougher conversation is what happens when things aren't going Caitlin Clark's way. And I've seen online that some people are starting to call her Crybaby Clark or Whiny Clark. And at this point, it is hard to disagree.
College basketball, and it doesn't even sound right. Again, she is tonight, Caitlin Clark 0 for 4 from 3. So on the road this season, Caitlin Clark is a combined 1 for 32 from three-point range. Very unusual. She's hot, beyond January, having to hold her back.
And from this very clip right here, you can see exactly what I mean. She did start out very calm until the conversation was done and the ref was done explaining. Then it's like she went to 1,000. That is what gets the critics and media's attention. And as the leader of the team, I'm only putting quotation marks because I don't know who's the leader of that team, to be honest. I don't know. But as the quote unquote leader of the team, as most people would say, you have to regulate your emotions to a certain extent. Okay. And that is majority of the time. And of course, players do have outbursts, right? There are multiple players throughout the league who have outbursts, who have done things that makes you look at them like, whoa, what's going on there, right? But the difference between them and Caitlin Clark is the consistency of her not being able to control her emotions. There are multiple clips that I could put in here, but I am not going to do that. When your emotional control becomes the only thing talked about, there is a much bigger underlying problem. And nowhere is her lack of control more obvious than with her interactions with referees. Now, if you haven't seen these things, then you're not watching Caitlin Clark, right? So I'll go ahead and put some clips up here. I'm only going to show 2 clips just to factually back myself up. Like I said in the beginning, I don't want to turn this into a Caitlin Clark bash, hate, bait video. That's not the goal here. Ironically, that clip was a extension of the clip that I was talking about with her emotional regulation, right? Where she started charging at the ref. But after she decided to charge at the ref, then she proceeded to call him over like this, get in his face and tell him she is going to call Sue. Now, if you don't know who Sue is, let me explain. She was referring to Sue Blaze, the referee performance head. Now, whether or not the call was good or bad, it did not call for all of this. She could have just told Sue, right? And I think that's where majority of the overshadowing comes in, is that majority of the things that she is doing, she does not have to do, or it could have been done at a much lower level. You know, she could have been at a 2, but she was at a 85,000. And it's like at some point you have to check that. Now, this could become potentially an integrity issue for the WNBA. And you're probably like, whoa, that's too far. Integrity? No, it's right up the alley, because if she keeps on doing this and not getting technicals What message is that sending? There have been multiple occasions of her yelling in the ref's face or doing something that would get anyone else a tech.
Indiana retains the rock.
I like it. I like the competitiveness has been raised a little bit. This is what I came for.
You can feel the intent.
And the ref is saying, get away from me. In this clip, she literally tells the ref to shut the F up. She's in the ref's faces. Her teammate has to hold her back. If I'm a ref and I have to say, get away from me, that is a technical foul. And to measure and compare, yes, this is a comparison game because referees should always be referees and they should always have one standard. That is not negotiable at all. There have been instances just this season where someone clapped for themselves and they got a tech. Someone clapped for their teammate, they got a tech. Someone even got a technical for throwing up their hands. If that is the standard, then keep the standard. But do not switch the standard for one particular player because that is where it becomes an integrity issue. I'm not saying that this is 100% Caitlin Clark because the refs have to tee her up to change that behavior. And she has not been getting those consequences to her actions, which is why I think this behavior is escalating. I don't have a main take on this, but my take is a question, essentially. And the question is for the WNBA and the referees, what is the standard? And the reason that this matters isn't because players shouldn't show emotion. We know players will show emotion. If you've ever played a sport, you get raw emotion sometimes, right? But the consistency of these actions is the problem. We have been seeing this from Caitlin Clark for years. It has just been gradually getting worse and worse. And a major issue with this going on for years is that this behavior has continued despite coaching changes. Is this a player issue? Is this a coaching issue? Is this a team culture issue? If Stephanie White is a good coach, which many of us believe, including myself, she's not a horrible coach, right? To me, I don't know what y'all think, but to me, she's not a horrible coach. Why are we still seeing the same issues over different coaches? And this brings up the question, is Caitlin Clark coachable? And that is really what the conversation comes down to. Is Caitlin Clark coachable? And in my opinion, this is the second opinion that I've had in this video, right? Everything else that I've stated were factual, right? Okay, are questions. But what I am going to have an opinion on is that at this very moment in time, I don't think that Caitlin Clark is coachable. Now, do I think she has been coachable previously? I would say that she hasn't necessarily had to be coachable because she is normally in college, in high school, she's a star of the show, and that's undeniable. But when you're the star of a show, especially in a place where there's not a lot of star players, right? Coaches tend to adapt around that player. So they coach around that player. So they make everyone else play around that player and play to her standard. And when you are the star of the show and you don't have a lot of players on the same team as you that can do what you can do, then sometimes teams have no option but to run their offense and defense based around her, right? But that is not the case in Indiana. She is not used to playing with other very talented people. And that's a main part of why I feel like she's not coachable right now. If Caitlin Clark improves on her defense, if she manages her emotions with officials and coaches, and she continues to lean into her playmaking, we are talking about a player who could potentially dominate this league for the next decade. And if those things don't change, we could be looking at the biggest downfall of a WNBA player yet to come. And that's frankly all that I have to say about the situation. I did want to go ahead and touch on it because I feel like a lot of people are making this solely Caitlin Clark, Caitlin Clark. When it is, right? But also, when it comes to the refs, I feel like there is a bigger issue at hand with integrity. And I don't think anyone is talking about that. And that is it for today's episode. I want to thank you guys so much for tuning in to Baseline Full Court Press. Don't forget to follow the podcast on Instagram and TikTok at Baseline FCP and on YouTube at Baseline Full Court Press. Also on Spotify. I do need to update my videos on Spotify, but I'm coming. I'm coming. It's just that Spotify is a whole lot different from YouTube, and I just need to learn how to work it, right? I'm trying something new today. No headphones. Normally I have on headphones. They're still connected, but I just want to see like how you guys like it. So tell me in the comments. Tell me in the comments, please, if you like it. Headphones, no headphones. Do you like the aesthetic better? Do you like the sound better? Quality? Just let me know. And once again, thank you guys so much for tuning in. See you next Thursday.